law enforcement professionals have requested $5.7 billion for a physical barrier. This barrier is absolutely critical to border security.
President Trump must stop holding the American people hostage, must stop manufacturing a crisis, and must reopen the government.
Democrats in Congress have refused to acknowledge the crisis, and they have refused to provide our brave border agents with the tools they desperately need.
No president should pound the table and demand he gets his way, or else the government shuts down.
The federal government remains shut down for one reason, and one reason only, because Democrats will not fund border security.
He promised to keep government shut down for months or years, no matter whom it hurts. That's just plain wrong.
The only solution is for Democrats to pass a spending bill that defends our borders and reopens the government.
This president just used the backdrop of the Oval Office to manufacture a crisis, stoke fear, and divert attention from the turmoil in his administration.
Senator Chuck Schumer has repeatedly supported a physical barrier in the past, along with many other Democrats. They changed their mind only after I was elected president.
So how did it get to this? Caleb Maupin next takes a closer look at how the U.S. government crisis unfolded.
We've heard the highly anticipated primetime address from the President of the United States, Donald Trump. Now, in the speech, Trump tried to make his case for the $5.7 billion he needs to build his border wall. Now, he emphasized the flow of drugs into the United States. Furthermore, he made reference to the MS-13 criminal gang and also highlighted crimes committed by people who had entered the country illegally. Trump did stop short of calling for the national emergency, as many people had anticipated that he might do, but he did call on people in the United States and American citizens and viewers to call their congressional representatives and ask them to fund his wall in order to end what he called a cycle of suffering. The wall has been a very big part of Donald Trump's political identity. It was mentioned all throughout his presidential campaign, and since he's taken office.
We're building the wall. We're building the wall, folks. We're building the wall.
A big, beautiful, powerful wall. A great, great wall. And it's going to be a real wall. It's going to be a high wall. It's going to be a beautiful. It's going to be a wall that works. I would build the greatest wall you have ever seen.
There was also a rebuttal from Democratic Party leaders. Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, they did respond to the president's remarks. They accused the president of engaging in, quote, government by temper tantrum and of holding the nation hostage. There is expected to be a meeting between the president and the congressional leaders shortly, and that will possibly clarify some of this. But at the moment, there seems to be a pretty big political gap in the United States, with many people enthusiastically supporting the president's call for a wall and many people enthusiastically opposing it, and the two not really seeing eye to eye on anything and not really being willing to compromise when it comes to the funding issue.
Oh, well, with me now is Colin Cavell, who's an associate professor of political science at Bluefield State College in West Virginia. Welcome to the programme. Does it surprise you that President Trump didn't call a national emergency and get the military to build his wall?
Well, he has not called a national emergency tonight, and it will depend on his public opinion ratings. What President Trump is aiming for is to keep his base intact. He has approximately, Mr. Bray, 33% solid support amongst the United States population. And so this whole border emergency is directed at that 33%. If he can keep that base in his court, then he can run and for the re-election in 2020, and he can run on this issue. Now, with the Democratic majority in the House taking over, they will adamantly oppose President Trump, launch numerous investigations into his dealings, because they are adamant as well. They are adamant against the president. They see this as a manufactured crisis. They don't see it as a national emergency. But from President Trump's perspective, because he needs that base, that third percent, of the U.S. population, it is a political crisis for him, and thus he, from his perspective, could say it's a national emergency.
But he got primetime airtime for this. He didn't come up with any new announcements. He just went over old ground of things he said many times before. Was he right to use the Oval Office for that?
Well, in politics, politicians will utilize whatever is at their means in order to advance their interests. Now, you say he got prime time airtime, but in the local area in West Virginia that I live, I went through all of the FM stations tonight during the speech, and not one of the FM radio stations carried the speech, and only 2 of the local AM stations carried the speech. And of course, in AM, there's many more radio stations on the air. So not many people, I think, initially heard the speech, although it will be replayed for tonight's news and tomorrow.
Although they're going to sleep on it now, on Wednesday Donald Trump's due to meet in the White House with congressional leaders. What do you expect, if anything, to come out of those talks?
Well, it looks like both sides are intransigent. They do not want to give an inch. And so while President Trump is trying to be conciliatory with his words by saying he does not want a concrete wall, he will go and allow for a steel wall, and that he is offering to meet with the Democratic leaders, Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, tomorrow. The Democrats are saying that all Trump has to do is separate the 2 issues, separate the issue of the border wall from the shutdown of the government, which has been shut down since December 22nd, and over 800,000 federal employees have been laid off, and starting on Friday, they will not get a paycheck. Now, once Friday comes and you have 800,000 people not getting a paycheck, then, Mr. Bray, you're going to see some real convulsions.
OK, I appreciate your time. I know it's late where you are. Colin Cavell in West Virginia. Thanks for that.